Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. Bradley's mother, Narkis Golan, passed away nearly 3 months ago. He is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he has received for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back to Italy, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system, where he can't speak or understand the language. He will be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390, hashtag Keep Bradley Safe. Please talk to the governor and ask her to keep Bradley in the United States. That's 518-474-8390. I have a return guest on. I'm very happy to have Tim Goldich back on. The last time he was on was December 28th of 2022, season 3, episode 188, where we talked about gender equalism and where feminism failed. He is an author. We're going to talk about victim interpretation and gender forgiveness. So I totally welcome you, Tim Goldich, back to Slam the Gavel. How are you this afternoon?
I'm good, Marianne. I really appreciate being here. I love doing my thing and appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
Oh, I'm glad to have you on. Because you had written your second book, Equal Partners: The History of Gender Equality. Well, that's due out in 23. Sorry. Um, so is that coming out real soon, or how soon?
Pretty soon. Pretty soon. It's nearly done. I light a fire under myself. I definitely can get it out by the end of this year.
hmm hmm It's hard. It's hard when you're busy with things and you've got to finish a book.
Yes. Yes, finishing is the most difficult part, definitely. Writing it is easy in comparison to finishing
Oh, yes.
it.
So, tell me about victim, you know, um, interpretation here. What does that mean?
All right, well, I'll begin by talking about I'll make a distinction between dualism and duality.
hmm
So dualism is where we look at everything in our world and we declare it either good or it's bad. It's either or thinking. So this thing over here, that's good. That thing over there, that's bad. That's dualism. A
hmm
step up from that, I think, is what I'll call duality. And that's both and thinking. So a thing is both good and bad, depending on how we look at it. It contains a little of both. And that position is supported by the I Ching and the Tao, which, oh, includes something we'll call the law of opposites. It just means that there cannot be good without bad, there cannot be bad without good, and that these things are just they're linked together and inseparable. Every gift is a burden, every burden is a gift, you see. And we can, they cannot be separated. We can choose to look at one or the other, but they're both there.
Mm.
So I'm going to accuse feminism of dualism, either or thinking.
Mhm,
So they sort of declare that men are bad and women are good.
mhm,
Man bad, the over-empowered oppressor. Woman good, the innocent victim.
mm,
That's a moral duality. And moral dualities have been very common all through history. And they've never turned out very well.
mhm, mhm,
It was the Christians are bad and the Romans are good,
mhm,
and, you know, Nazi Germany, the Jews were bad. They were at fault and to blame for all things. And
mhm,
we know that didn't work out so good. So, yeah, these moral polarities are poison.
mhm,
So, victim interpreting. Yeah, I mean, women can look at everything in their lot in life and victim interpret it. they could choose to power interpret it also, because this duality of all things makes it possible to
Mhm.
that both coexist. So yeah, you could say that beauty is a burden, or you could say that it's a gift, depending on how you want to look at it. Motherhood is sacrifice, or motherhood is the most, perhaps the most powerful role,
Mhm.
powerful common role that humans can have.
Mhm.
The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. It's all how you look at it, right? It's all can be interpreted either way. And so I would accuse feminism of victim interpreting the female reality and power interpreting the male reality, uh, when actually they're both.
Mhm.
The Oh yeah, okay. So man goes and gets the paycheck and brings home the bacon,
Mhm.
and out of that he gets economic power, right? He has this power that comes of being the one that brings in the money, and that's true. And you can also look at it and say that he's obligated to earn his family's love, and every hour he devotes to earning his family's love leaves him with one fewer hour in which to be with his family's love. Power interpret, victim interpret. They're both valid depending on how you choose to look at it.
Mhm.
So just my objection with feminism is that it's a kind of ideological dictatorship that says you must look at it this way and you must not look at it that way.
Can patriarchy play the same role as feminism is doing?
Well, feminism is an ideology. Patriarchy, all right, so let's take a look at patriarchy. The feminist definition of patriarchy is a standalone male force, the power that rules our human world.
Mhm.
And I will claim that patriarchy, as so defined, never existed.
Mhm.
That patriarchy is a perfectly valid word if it's understood in conjunction with the mirror opposite matricensis, the female consensus, the sisterhood. If you look at these as dual powers,
Mhm.
one operating along the respect axis and the other operating along the love axis, one being the public world and the other being the private world, then these two forces can be seen as equal partners applying equal overall force of influence in the human system, equally responsible for outcomes.
Mhm.
And I'd love to get a chance to talk about Lloyd DeMause and his theories about the evolution of human parenting.
Mhm.
Maybe there'll be time to get squeak that one in.
Mhm.
But patriarchy, yeah, I would replace. How would I put this? Rather than rather than a feminist definition of patriarchy, I will introduce the terms patramatricensis when we're talking about a male-female consensus as that which rules the world. The gender system would be one of patramatricensis. Throughout history, it's been sustained, engaged in, created, maintained by woman and man in co-equal co-partnership.
Mhm.
It's been agreed to by both sexes. Men are like this, women are like that. Men do this, and women do that. That's been a consensus of male and female. And there's also what I will call a patramatriarchy, which is this can be a conflict of interest between woman and man, and they're still like equal partners in this vast gender dance, as it were. And yes, men are expected to lead the dance, but they're obligated to lead in a way that pleases the woman, or should just go dance with somebody else.
Mhm.
So I see man as dominating every society throughout history, And I see women as manipulating every society all through history. And that will raise a lot of anger, that whole thing of accusing women of being manipulative. But hold on here a second. So what is this accusation that men are dominant and domineering? And what is the judgment that we have of men then? Or the if man dominates, then he's at fault and to blame for criminality and violence and war and raping women and raping the earth and all things bad. This is a absolute indictment that can come out of this accusation that men dominate. So really, when we recoil at the idea of women manipulating, we're just demonstrating our heightened sensitivity toward women and the protection that women receive from judgment like
Mhm.
that. But again, it's a duality of everything. Domination can be looked at as leading by example. It can be many men lead, but just by like a Jordan Peterson, who's just impressive and people just want to follow him. He doesn't have any real dominance, or I don't know, how do you put it? He doesn't have a political position. He doesn't have a title,
Agenda or something.
agenda. Exactly. He's an intellectual, and he leads on that basis. Meanwhile, see, we wouldn't want to call Gandhi manipulative,
Mhm.
but he's not ruling by dominance when he does a starvation and says,
Mhm.
I'm not going to eat until this happens. That's a manipulative strategy.
Mhm.
We just don't want to call it that because we've decided that manipulation is a negative thing. But if a woman tells her husband, gee, you look great since you've been going to the gym. She's just, these kind of things, you're so hot when you eat good, you eat well, or whatever it is. Um, then you're manipulating in a positive way. So when women hear that women have been manipulative throughout history, rather than recoil as a terrible insult, they could, positive interpret it as women have been smarter, more clever. You see, it's all how you look at it
Mhm.
again.
Right, and also patriarchy. I did a podcast on this with, Coral Anacatile, and we were talking about patriarchy also hurting men.
Oh, sure. Sure. I think the flaw in patriarchy victimizes both sexes, that it's primarily victimized men. It's really done its best to protect women. But
Mhm.
you see, the duality of things again rears its head because protection and oppression are often flip sides of the same coin, you see.
Mhm.
Um, so, I mean, you can't gift, women cannot enjoy extra protection without suffering the extra condescension that goes with it. Women cannot enjoy extra help or charity or without suffering the extra dependence that goes with it. Duality to all things. And
Mm.
yes, and it's not as if women have been uninvolved in this. Women have certainly sent the message we want to be protected. Remember, the past was brutal.
Mhm, mhm,
As bad as it seems now, at least we're not burning people at the stake in public arenas for kicks and for enjoyment.
mhm,
Things have improved since antiquity, certainly.
mhm,
So protection has lost some of its value. Arguably, in the brutal past of like ancient Rome or whatever, any measure of protection, even partial protection, is golden. It was
mhm,
arguably some of the most valuable commodity there is, and women paid a high price for it. But
mhm,
that was part of a woman's choices, whether those choices were conscious or unconscious.
mhm. That brings, us to, like, this gender forgiveness. There's this
Yeah.
I don't know if it's animosity, probably the wrong word to use, we were talking about the MGTOW movement and INCEL and, you know, maybe some people can't forgive after a bad experience. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's bring it to the individual level, but I think society is not forgiving.
Mhm,
There's a lack of any generosity, gender generosity out there. The politicized men's movement is dead set against women having any extra privilege or power within the domestic and reproductive realms. They say that if women can have abortions, then men ought to be able to choose to have abortions too, to state that the fetus must be aborted. This is all what I call unisex equality. This is this effort
mhm,
of exact sameness of equality. But of course, the problem with it is that we're not a unisex species and it doesn't work that way. And forcing a woman to have an abortion because the man says so is draconian and appalling.
mhm,
And let's just be generous. How about women just have some extra powers and privileges that go with being female? And then, and the mirror opposite, how about if feminists chill out and allow men to compensate for being male?
mhm,
Part of what it is to be male is to perform, achieve, and succeed our way into having what women are empowered to demand of us. And how about allowing men to do that?
mhm,
You know, how about not begrudging it so? How about just not spitting bitter acid if men, you know, continue to dominate the upper top end of the world of men? Let's not forget that men also dominate the bottom of the male hierarchy as well. The
mhm,
imprisoned, the you know, the homeless, the hard hazardous laborers, the battlefields, you know. So how about having some generosity? So this is part of what forgiveness would look like. Come on.
mhm,
You know, throughout history, each sex fulfilled its end of an intergender contract.
mhm,
Each one fulfilled its end and earned its rewards fair and square. And there's nothing to look back on and say that either sex got screwed.
mhm, mhm,
Sure, you can look at it if you want, if you must, but it's a poisonous way of looking at it and pointless. It's a much healthier way to look at it that each sex earned its rewards, and there's nothing to begrudge, and there's really no basis for this intersex rage, rancor, resentment, victim, vengeance, self-righteousness poison.
mhm,
Come on, what good is it? Let
mhm,
it go. Forgiveness, yes.
mhm.
And my lament is that intergender forgiveness is not even on the table. It's not even discussed. It's not even a thing, you know, and that's just very sad.
Mhm. And with the ways of the world and, say, false accusations, I think a lot of guys are I think that scares them more than anything. It scares me because I've had false accusations as well.
Wow, terrifying.
Uh, it as far as MGTOW, part of me doesn't blame them.
I know. I know. They have a strong point of view. I can't really blame them either. As I was saying earlier, the only thing I would begrudge about MGTOW is they're so damn cheerful about it.
Mm,
They just make it look like it's just the greatest thing. Well, it's not. It's sad and it's tragic. It may be necessary, arguably necessary, but it's not a good thing.
mm,
And it's part of what I'll call heterophobia.
mhm,
It's an intersex sort of paranoia where the women are terrified they're going to be raped, and the men are terrified that they're going to be falsely accused of rape. Where the women are fearful that they'll be dominated in the relationship, and you know, the men fear that, well, both sexes fear this idea they're going to be slaves to their opposite sex.
mhm,
Women will fear that they'll be domestic slaves, and the men will fear that they'll be wage slaves. And of course, men are terrified that they'll raise a family, they'll have profound investment in children and in the family and in the home, and they may lose all of it. They may lose all of it, you know. No man living in a studio apartment somewhere fighting an uphill battle in the courts for visitation rights
Mhm.
have any doubt of whose home and family it was.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of fear back and forth and a lot of resentment. And it doesn't really need to be that way. There's there's an aspect of the battle of the sexes that goes back to the Stone Age, and it derives from women and men having differing sexual strategies. And so there's always going to be some intersex conflict around that. But this war of the sexes is based on nothing. It's based on gender politics, not gender reality. And it's way out of hand. And I don't know how bad it's going to have to get before people are going to start saying, wait a minute, I've had it with this contest for the coveted title of MVP,
Mhm.
most victimized and powerless. I'm done with that contest. I'm done with that whole my victim's bigger than your victim, and be prepared to think about calling it even, because that's the solution right there.
Mhm.
I don't know what the solution is. It's for woman and man to lay down their weaponry, call it even, and move on to a more evolved, healthy form of gender politics and gender relations.
Mhm. I don't know when that will occur.
That doesn't seem anywhere in sight.
Mhm.
No,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Um, and tell me about the glass floor. We were talking earlier and you had mentioned it.
Yeah, so that's more of a duality, right? Everything. So I look at male female issues as mirrored, and I talked a little bit about that last time, but yeah, the glass ceiling is mirrored or parallel, as it were, by the glass floor. So what is the glass ceiling? Well, throughout history, whenever a woman looked up, she experienced what we now call the glass ceiling, is a kind of semi-permeable membrane comprised of such things as tradition, social conditioning, um, expectations, plus various socio-political and legal um, aspects. And it was semi-permeable. Some women got up there at the top, but most did not, right?
Mhm.
If, however, she had looked down, she might have noticed that she was walking on a kind of glass floor
Mhm.
comprised of all the same stuff. It too was all about tradition, gender role expectations, stereotypes, you know, all that lovely gender political stuff, you know, and various socio and political factors as well, that tended to safeguard from sinking to the extreme bottom of jail cells and foxholes and mine shafts, and is basically the glass floor has been a partial insulation between women and the dark side of the world and human nature, plus most of life on Earth's most profoundly brutal, hard, harsh, hazardous, and corrupting influences. And further, one woman's floor is another man's ceiling. You see, throughout history, the stigmatized prisoners, the disabled laborers, the war-torn soldiers, when they looked up, oh, the men at the bottom, the glass ceiling they experienced was the glass floor that women walked upon. So men have always, for every one CEO, there have been many POWs.
Mhm.
Men have always occupied both extremes, the most and the least enviable positions on earth, the latter in far greater numbers than the former. Meanwhile, women have been largely occupied the middle ground.
Mhm.
Uh, so again, there are ways of looking at gender reality where woman and man don't have to be at each other's throats,
Mhm.
where neither sex is the victim, neither sex had the power. They they just had a role to perform.
Mhm. And that's based on history, hundreds of years of
Thousands of years, yeah.
that well, yeah, even that too, but yeah, I guess I was thinking over in Europe, it's thousands of years, and over here, it's hundreds of years. When I lived over there, it was always thousands of years. Everything was thousands
Yeah,
of years
some
old.
schoolhouse. So you see that was from 8,000 years ago that was
Yeah.
built.
Yeah, so it's almost like, do you think it's, in our, I wanna say psyche, but in a man or woman's psyche to have these, um, you know, ideas of how things should be?
Yeah, it goes back to
Mhm,
instinct and eros, as I talked about last time.
mhm,
This idea that men have the power and women are the victims is an erotic story, and it's goes all the way back to the mighty Odysseus and the fair Helen of Troy. It's built deep into the instinct and the archetypes that are more powerful than fact and logic in our minds and our psyches.
mhm. And so, all of this, throughout all these thousands of years or so, it has degraded society to the point where it's depraved.
Well, I'll put it this way. I think that the male power, female victimization paradigm used to be romanticized, and now it is politicized and weaponized. So it used to be a warm, fuzzy story of men protecting women, coming to women's rescue. Uh, we used to think of it as a good thing, and now we look at it as men oppressing women, dominating women, keeping women down, uh, victimized,
Mhm,
and so so it was never true. Men never had the power. Men had more male power than women,
mhm,
but women have always had more female power than men. And women have always been prioritized in terms of sympathy, leniency, charity,
mhm,
compassion. Um, we haven't looked at that as power,
mhm,
but that's because feminism doesn't want to look at it as power. Feminism just wants to define power as the thing that men have and that women are struggling to acquire.
mhm,
So then feminism can come to the bargaining table saying, we have nothing, you have everything, give us what you got, pour from your glass half full into our glass half empty, and then everything will be right with the world. Meanwhile, women look around them and they're screaming, there are no men. So
mhm,
something's not working about that. Is there time? Let me there's this theory by Lloyd Demoz that I
mhm,
think is terribly important,
mhm,
and it's unknown. Okay, feminism doesn't want to know about it, so it doesn't exist in academia, but it's staggeringly important. So the theory goes that uh, just as there has been an evolution of human technology,
mhm,
driven largely by men. Demoz posits that there has been an evolution of human parenting driven mostly by women. And this evolution of human parenting has been the evolution of human empathy, emotional intelligence, social skills, mental health.
Mhm.
What could be more important than that?
Mhm.
What could be more important than that? Okay, signposts of this evolution of human empathy. You can see it slightly very see it follows the same sort of trajectory where the evolution of human technology is pretty flatlined, you know, bumping a little bit up in the Middle Ages, a little quicker in the what they used to call the Enlightenment and the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, and then modern world just went straight up vertical. And it's the same with human parenting. But you get your first sign of it like the much maligned US Constitution saying all men are created equal. Those who decry it just have no comprehension of what a staggering step up it was for its time.
Mhm.
And more obvious than as you go along and it goes, the slope goes faster, is the Geneva Convention, okay, holding the concept of war crimes. I mean, that didn't exist 500 years ago. Forget it. There was no such thing. You know, the with the Nuremberg trials, Israel, and then as you get into the modern times, and it goes really vertical. Now we have empathy for marginalized groups of people that we used to have no tolerance for.
Mhm.
Homosexuals were burned at the stake back in the in early modern Europe. This is all. This is all due to the evolution of human parenting, all of it driven by women.
Mhm.
Arguably, we have women to thank for human rights. What could be more important than that?
Mhm.
So why isn't feminism all over with that? Why aren't they jumping up and down, say, look at what women are responsible for. Look at what women have achieved in this world. Why? Because they achieve this through female modes of power, not male modes of power.
Mhm.
You see, feminism loves female queens and potentates, but it doesn't want to know about women wielding female power through female channels. And it doesn't really want to accord the world of women with this power, this equal partnership. But see how important that theory is,
Mhm.
uh, and why does it languish in obscurity?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. You know, like you said earlier, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And do you think feminism has forgotten that maybe that they have more power than they think? That I mean, positive power.
I know there's a quote from a feminist named Natalie Anger. She said simply, "The world of men is the world." I think that attitude informs feminism. There's a profound envy, I think a kind of naive envy of men and masculinity and looking just at the positive aspects of men and masculinity, and envying it and wanting in on it. And you know, of the two worlds, the world of women and the world of men, which world has feminism attacked?
Mm,
Which world has feminism shamed, disparaged, and diminished? It's the world of women. It's been telling women to prioritize career, that is, prioritize the world of men, prioritize your investment in the world of men, hold off on marriage,
mm,
limit your immersion within roles and realms in which many women are at their happiest.
mm,
I would accuse feminism of viewing women, their primary importance or value to feminists is as soldiers in this holy war to take down the patriarchy,
mhm,
and doesn't want to know about women wielding power within the world of women, doesn't even want there to be a world of women. Simone de Beauvoir said that women should not have the option to stay home and take care of children, because if they're given that option, too many will take it. For her, again, it's clear women's primary purpose is to get into the world of men and compete with men and rise to the top of the world of men and depose the patriarchy. He didn't care if women were made miserable doing that.
mm,
Was
mhm.
not, and every measure of female happiness has plummeted in recent decades, which is not true for men. And everywhere in the world, the most feminist cultures produce the least happy women. It's contrary to feminism is very contrary, is very hostile toward biology, and holds the biology in contempt. But biology, well, it is, and uh, hmm, it it provides humans with something that they can ascribe sacredness to. This whole men and women getting together to procreate, as they
Mm,
have for thousands and millions of years, ties us into something primal and something that we can call sacred.
mhm.
And the more we are divorced from archetypes such as that, I think the more sort of nihilistic we become. We we lose joy. We lose a sense of the importance of the future. Geez, um, a friend of mine whom I really admire, I think she's great. She posted some years ago about how she didn't really care if humans stopped breeding and just died out. She argued that there'd be no victims of it. There'd be no violence involved. What's the problem? A purely nihilistic outlook on life. That seems to me that what that says is nothing is sacred. Nothing matters.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people have said I have said, you know, uh, it's not safe to bring a baby into this world anymore.
Yeah, I know there is that feeling.
That's that CPS. I'm not blaming men. I'm just saying it's a CPS problem. You know what I'm saying? And a
Yeah,
family court problem. And because there are male and female judges that are just breaking up families and taking kids and whatever.
yeah,
So I'm not, blaming a male in particular. I had a male judge, but that doesn't mean all male judges are bad. I had a good male judge who was really good looking. couldn't even look at him. I had to look down at the floor. That's how good looking he was, and he did the right thing. Okay, so that's rare. But, I had a female judge who was vindictive and harassive,
Uh,
and it's like, wow, you know,
sure.
I didn't know what to think of that. I just never thought, a woman of power, that much power,
Yeah.
was that power hungry
Yeah.
to almost want to kill you,
Yeah. He's right. Yeah.
I mean, but, it's really sad. So I hate to be dismal all the time.
Huh. Yeah. I know. Despair too. Well, there's been so much anxiety around gender equality that, oh, I think it's a primary force underneath. Well, it started with gender is just a social construct. Gender is purely a social construct. That was feminism's way of saying that men and women are identical and absolutely interchangeable, and therefore there's no reason why women shouldn't share male power with men. And then it eventually kind of morphed into this. Well, if we can't achieve this so-called gender equality any other way, as a last resort, we'll sort of obliterate gender entirely. In a genderless society, gender equality becomes a meaningless concept. But at what cost, you see?
Mhm. Hmm.
That's a theory of mine around this.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know how the, genders will forgive
I don't know.
and
They'll
just
for- they'll forgive when they agree that male power is equaled by female power and female victimization is equal by male victimization. They'll forgive when they realize that what uh, that, that it makes no sense to resent the various powers and privileges your opposite sex has when you come to understand that your own sex enjoys powers and privileges in equal measure. That the various powers and privileges each sex have come at a cost, and the cost comes out even. That's how you reach forgiveness.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know when that's gonna happen. It just people have to be more open-minded.
Yeah,
I think that's the only way, that we all can survive is just being open-minded, hearing 2 sides of the coin,
yeah,
and, being more compassionate towards
oh,
each other.
yeah. More generous. Yeah, yes, right.
You know, um, hopefully, you know, people listening to this will think about all of this and, you know, give it a thought.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I don't see anything budging an inch within the realm of gender politics. It's just too entrenched and too embittered. But perhaps there's still a contingent in the general public that is tired of the gender war and may be willing to listen to avenues of intersex harmony, unity, fairness, forgiveness.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that can happen if people would chill out, you know? Don't be so up in arms. Just,
Ah, yeah,
uh, go with just, go with the flow, listen to what the other person has to say, and not be so ready to jump at the throat.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's what has happened to this world, is that there has been so much animosity pitted between a lot of things, either males or females or politics or whatever. There's just too much, bumping of the heads.
Yeah. Too much judgment, too much resentment. Yeah. Too much victimage.
Mhm, mhm,
Jeez.
mhm.
Hmm.
Like, I always liked what Ellen DeGeneres always said on her, show when she ended it was, always be kind to one
Yeah.
another."
Yeah.
It's like, I like to hear that.
I do too.
So, well, I'd like to have you back on again for
Sure.
another intense conversation.
Yeah. 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 I don't exactly shoot the breeze about the weather, do I? I mean, go.
Yeah. And those are the facts. But hey, don't jump off. Oh, wait, how can people reach you if they have a question?
Yeah. So my email address is TAGOLDICH at hotmail.com. Yeah, that's right. I still have a Hotmail address. You can see what a dinosaur I am,
Oh,
and please check me out. My Facebook page, We Are Gender Equalists.com. And you can look for me at timgoldich.com.
mhm.
And that will have links to other things.
Well,
And my book is called Loving Men, Respecting Women, The Future of Gender Politics. That's available on Amazon. And I'd love to hear from anyone. Put
ex
some comments in the down below.
yeah, definitely. Well, I totally thank you for your time, and, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Tim Goldich and other exciting guests. I thank you so much for your time,
Thank you. Well, lovely time. Was very I enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
and we'll do it again.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, bye.